Welcome to the 54th broadcast of the t-roh Show. It's your host, Keith.
Hi, this is Stu. Nice to be with you again.
And we're going to talk about, as we always do, a bunch of stuff. We always have information, so we want to talk about it. First thing we wanted to address was a little bit about what's going on in the country. And uh, we believe some people are being kind of foolish as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just, it's crazy what they're doing. It said blind allegiance is the most dangerous act that can be committed by a human being. Okay, and Zero Hedge, which they've got some good stories and everything, but this one was kind of, come on, they put a story out where it says DHS biometric exit program also stands on shaky legal ground. Congress has repeatedly ordered the collection of biometrics from foreign nationals at the border, but has never clearly authorized the border collection of biometrics from the American citizens using face recognition technology. Without explicit authorization, DHS should not be scanning faces of Americans as they depart on international flights. Folks, they've been doing that for years. Seriously. But
Don't
DHS
they?
is,
Don't they basically do that in like department stores and stuff?
they do it everywhere.
I mean, isn't Facebook basically a data collection thing where they're grabbing people's pictures at teen and at 19 and
I
so
think
on
it's in
through?
the name. When you think Facebook,
Yeah,
I mean, it kind of tells you right there.
right. Then they take the pictures and they throw them into facial recognition programs, and away they go.
Right. And they say, but DHS is doing it anyway. Oh, those bad DHS, Department of Homeland Security, those bad people. DHS is also failing to comply with federal law requiring it to conduct a rulemaking process to implement the airport face scanning program. Well, if it's illegal, why would you need rulemaking process? Okay, so they're saying they're saying that it's illegal, but has never clearly authorized the border collection of biometrics from American citizens. But let's put that aside and say, oh, well, they stopped the rulemaking process of collecting biometrics from American citizens, a process the DHS has not even started. Well, folks, come on. They were ordered to do this. Okay? There's the as expedited completion of biometrics entry exit tracking system. This was Section 7. The Secretary of Homeland Security shall expedite the completion and implementation of a biometric entry exit tracking system for all travelers to the United States. Was all travelers? Okay, as recommended by the National Commission on a Terrorist Attack upon the United States. And this came from their own guy that they, you know, this was what they call an executive, a CEO authorized it. And we're, that's what I said, blind allegiance, folks. And it brings up this other thing that people are coming on YouTube now and talking about how many people are being arrested and thrown in prison and all this, what was it, indictments and all this stuff.
Yeah, right. There's it's the rave. So
Yeah.
the latest story is multiple thousands of sealed indictments that will over the spring, let's say, over time, lead to a bunch of high-profile arrests and military tribunals, etc. Now, it could be, but there. I think we're still in the phase of a little skepticism about that. There may be some token arrests, but
Well, why all the secrecy? That's all I'm saying.
mm-hmm.
In other words, why is it that it's not right there in the news? Why is it that they can't find any evidence of it? It's just, oh, this is happening. You have to trust me that it's happening.
Yeah.
You have to trust what I'm saying.
Yeah, very well.
On YouTube, by the way, out of somebody's house, you have to trust what I'm telling you. It's all secret. Well, if it's secret, how do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's definitely a level of speculation within that firestorm, and it is a firestorm. I mean, it's a hot topic. there's a level of parroting and speculation that folks need to, assess as they're listening to. It's fascinating stuff, but you need to be critically thinking as you're being exposed to this information.
Right. When someone is saying something, you have to be somewhat skeptical because of for instance, well, we'll get into that when we get into the tort claim here, but also it says America first. Everybody's got their America first hat on, then you go downtown and everything, and then people throw sodas at you and beers and crap in your face when you have America first again, little red hat on. That's been a big thing on Alex Jones. They have a bunch of videos about that, how much people hate America first.
Right.
And the red hat, and they're fascists and all this other kind of crap. And then they go into the narrative of, well, it's actually the fascists telling the fascists that they're fascists. It goes back and forth, and it's good entertainment. I mean, really, you can really get involved in it. And think about this, though: these same people were the ones, and what's driving all of this? What's driving it is you have a lack of justice.
Right.
Well, somebody gave that order. Don't give the people any justice and make them starve for it.
Right. Right. And that introduces a whole new level of conversation with, is Trump, we know, we've established via this show for the folks that the elections aren't really what they're sold to the public to be. So, to cut to the chase, someone put Trump into power. Who? We don't know. Somebody put Trump into power. And as a CEO, there's a board of directors above him. He's being told what to do. So,
right. He doesn't just get into office and then all of a sudden he learns all this stuff and is briefed on all this thing and, okay, let's come up with this massive plan. This was all done by civil service. Guys that have been there for years.
Right. Yeah. And, I'm not disputing that there's an effort to clean up. I'm not disputing that there's an effort to drain the swamp. There's, that appears to be self-evident. The extent of that is what, really should be evaluated. I just don't see that it's going to be this, in February that the world's going to have an altered feel to it. I think some of the bad actors are probably being, hunted, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure. Look, how about looking at it this way? One of the big complaints about Obama presidency was that he basically did executive orders. And the criticism was that not only were there too many of them, but that they were outside the bounds of their constitution. Well, what's Trump done? Trump in a year has basically done executive order after executive order after executive order, including the human rights one just a week or so ago. So there's no real change in how the United States is going about implementing what it's doing. It's a political shift. It's a perceived shift in priorities. Perceived, by the way.
Right.
But are we really getting, or is the United States and the people of the American society, are they really getting what they think they're getting? That's the question. And I think we need more time to tell. So I think the message really is pretty much, like you said, keep some critical thought as you're assessing what's going on, as you're hearing some of these stories, particularly from guys that are running stuff out of their house, because they're probably doing a lot of parroting, and they don't really have the connections.
Right, and then we know that. Okay, we talk about these things because we know it's things that a lot of people don't know. So when we're seeing it, we can see BS real fast. We can see a show. We can see a manipulation. We know, okay, when you know the truth, it's really difficult to lie to you.
Yeah. And let's give a quick example of that. You know, we've established within this show that the Middle East is important to the New World Order. They use it to create chaos. They use it to create angst. They use it for population shifts, etc. So it's pretty important. If there's real cleanup going on, and Saudi Arabia has frozen assets and things like that, okay, that's great. But could we not have a parallel thing where something's being implemented under the ruse of cleanup, and yet it's still steps towards installing the New World Order? I mean, Trump is still playing around in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. He where were those bombs dropped a couple 3 months ago? So he's still playing around in the Middle East. The United States is still playing around in the Middle East, even though we're supposed to be, you know, cleaning these things up. Yet we also know that the Middle East is a primary piece to the New World Order installation. So, you know, you've got this parallel narrative going on that you know, they're good at it.
Very, very good. It's yeah, they rely on people not really understanding international law, international moves, chess moves, that kind of thing. Okay, I'll give you an example. We have this. Y'all are gonna love this. One of our claimants, okay, came out and put a claim in the newspaper. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Okay, so there's an alien tort claim against Grandmaster John B. Stuttle of Grand Lodge of Minnesota for multiple human rights violations. And this was the Beverly did this because basically they were saying claims a human being known as Beverly at the woman's legal person known as Beverly within the United States of America as foreign temple property of the Grand Master with John B. Stuttle. Okay, so we get this, right? So people would look at this and go, oh, well, this is, why are they charging the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Minnesota? Why is she making a claim against him? This is over a court case over something completely different, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's usually what you'll see. Well, if you think about it, well, I'll just show you. Here's a letter that we get from the state of Minnesota, the Office of the Attorney General. It says the office was contacted by John B. Stuttle on behalf of the Grand Lodge of Minnesota, located at the Masonic Home Drive, Bloomington, blah, blah. Mr. Stuttle states that the Grand Lodge received correspondence via email, and fax from International Notaries Incorporated. He states that the correspondence indicates International Notaries received an international public alien tort claim that lists Beverly as claimant and John B. Stuttle as respondent. Mr. Stuttle states that the correspondence includes a link to a website that has published additional content related to the correspondence. He reports that when he searched John B. Stuttle online, the search results include a link entitled Alien Tort Claim Against Grandmaster John B. Stuttle. Well, duh, it's on the newspaper. Mr. Stuttle asked International Notaries and any of its affiliates to cease contacting the Grand Lodge and remove the online post referenced above. I ask you to review this matter as quickly as possible and address Mr. Stuttle's concerns. Folks, hello, this is the Minnesota Attorney General's office using taxpayer money to write a letter on behalf of a Grand Lodge of Minnesota, a private membership association that has nothing to do with the state. Or does it?
Or does
hell, I can call any attorney general of any state and they'll write a letter at taxpayer expense on my behalf. At any time that, that I just pick up the phone and say, hey, you guys just remove this and get rid of it. for me. That's
probably didn't even pick up the phone. They probably discussed it in person at a dinner or something on the golf course.
So, and I know anybody else in this country can just pick up the phone and call an attorney general, and he'll write a letter on your behalf, no problem. Seriously?
Yeah.
So guess what, folks? We were right.
Yeah.
We were right. The Grand Masters and the Masonic lodges hijacked the original states of the Union, and they call the government that they set up as a state within a state to make things happen that they want to happen. Because, you know, everybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can pick up a phone and that attorney general will snap to attention and write a letter on your behalf.
Right. And let's introduce, let's also introduce that the content of this letter, folks, doesn't address the complaint
At all.
He doesn't rebut anything. He clearly doesn't come out and say, you know, there's no validity to the trafficking claim and, you know, blah, blah, blah. He just says, try to lean on him and take it down.
Yeah, get that taken down. Unbelievable. But they do it. And, you know, then other people that knew about this before were saying, well, that's a felony. That's this. That's it. Folks, when we tell you, think about it. Think, man, when we're telling you that the Grand Masters Lodges and the Masonic Lodge were the ones that passed the Constitution, and you're not in the lodge, you're not in the party. You get it? You're not in the club. But we are going to tell you what they did to you. These same people, this same Mr. John that could just call an attorney general anytime he wants, and the attorney general will use taxpayer money to write a private letter on his behalf, which they never do for anyone. They only take cases that politically enhance and or politically advance whatever the agenda is to make some money off the stock market. That's what they do. So if there's a political agenda, they want to put something out, they want to get everybody's, they want to get some money from the stock market and start manipulating the stock market, they'll do that.
Yeah, and since you brought the stock market up, that ties back into a couple minutes ago. You know, Trump supporters, of course, will point to the stock market and its surge.
Highly inflated, Stu.
Right.
Highly inflated.
Exactly. And we know that it's manipulated. So
that bubble will burst in no time because that thing is so inflated.
Yeah. So again, you need to have critical thought here when you're assessing what's happening out there.
Right. And we're not trying to just give you a bunch of bad news. That's not what we're saying. What we're trying to do is say, look, think, man, watch what's really going on. Know the truth, because the truth is good news. It's always good news when you know the truth.
Yeah, I thought when we got that letter, I put a smile on my face, I have to admit, because we hit the target.
Yeah.
He didn't like it.
No, he did not. He did not. And you know, he's up there going, oh, please, sir. You know, he's doing that.
Yeah.
Have them take off. We don't need this type of harassment here. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Let's, now when we say that we know the truth, we're going to show you actually what's behind everything that you guys are watching, everything you're seeing. Please don't fall for everything you're hearing on YouTube as far as good news, pedophiles, and all this other stuff. We're not saying it's that we don't agree with pedophiles being arrested, because as far as I'm concerned, they should be burnt at the stake. However, if they really truly are, parade them right down the freaking line. Okay,
yeah,
get them in there.
That's another question. Why aren't there perp walks? Oh, well, we can't have society exposed to that because it'll create turmoil.
Because we're too sensitive, right? We can't handle it.
Yeah. Exactly. So, come on. I'm a little tired. Personally, I'm a little tired of being fed that kind of a line. We can't handle it or whatever. If you're gonna really go out there and clean up, then let's see some folks. Let's see some perp walks.
Let's see some suits and chains, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't just sit there and say, "Oh, well, they did this," or "That's what happened to them." All right.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be secret indictments. Okay, so you guys are supposed to be running star chamber courts. Good one. Okay, that's what a star chamber court is. A bunch of people get together and decide somebody's guilt, and then go ahead and make it happen.
Yeah, and the verification element is important. I mean, that's why you have viewings for deaths and things like that. You need to be able to verify through your senses that particular things occurred, and the constant, basically it boils down to constant storytelling. There's what's the last thing that we were ever able to prove that the United States did that was a good thing? To literally prove it, I'm hard pressed to come up with something.
Well, we were talking about that today. They are so good at that stuff, man. And really good at hiding things and, hiding the ends game.
Yeah.
They put a face on this and a face on that, and it's very difficult to find out what they're actually going to do next. So the bottom line is there's an international alien tort claim was amended here at 12/29/2017. Here's the publication right here, and it does have a evidence file attached as a zip file. You can go take a look at the evidence that we have and all that. But this was coming from 2017 127, which was not really as good as this one is here. I can understand if it was ignored, but at any rate, the United States of America is made up of. I'm just going to go over this. We're going to go over this today, just so people can see what's really going on here. Okay, once you see it from these eyes and this point of view, then you'll see what we're talking about is BS. I call BS. When you're doing this, when you're watching what's going on in YouTube and everything else, because they really play on the hopes of the people and starve the people from justice, and then play on that. And then they starve people here and then play on that. And this is how they get political agendas moving forward. Happens all the time.
Correct.
So the United States of America is a country that's made up of the metes and bounds as written within the Articles of Confederation, as amended August 5th, 2015. This was amended, by the way, a couple of times before that. We're just going by the last amendment. And established and surveyed by the General Post Office, started in 1775. Now, the United States was created under a Constitution of the United States, and the United States of America was created under a Constitution of the United States of America in 1787, without any form or connection to the original General Post Office of 1775. We'll prove that in just a little while. The States of the Union, also known as the United States of America, consist of 48 to 50 states that entered into a perpetual union. The United States and the United States of America are foreign to the United States of America and the States of the Union. And once again, you don't have to have any speculation or just believe us. It's right here. Okay, it says the defendants have correctly stated, this was in a case, 1949, well-established principle of law that the government of the United States is foreign to as to the States of the Union, within the rule of private international law, that the penal statutes of one sovereignty will not be enforced by another. So if that's the case, how is it when the United States comes against somebody that they're bringing in their penal law? They're charging people with felonies. How do they do that? Without violating this case. And then people will justify this in their heads, and they'll say, oh, it's because they never brought it up in the courtroom. Well, no, that's not what was going on, because if that was the case, then everyone would be convicted because they didn't know something. Okay, there's no law against not knowing something. It is up to the judges to know what it is and to know the law and to know that they don't have the right to do what they're doing. That's called self-projection, and all this. So they have a bunch of people going through and saying, well, I know this secret and I know that secret. So why is it that the judiciary is constantly trying to get away with something? This is like dealing with a teenager that you constantly have to watch because they're going to steal from you, burn your house down, or do something stupid. And that is exactly how the judiciary operates. They operate like teenage boys that you have to constantly watch and monitor. So the whole narrative about, well, if you didn't know this, then you're going to be convicted. That whole narrative, that's okay. So I got to watch a 14-year-old boy or 15-year-old boy or girl because they might commit mischief and they might burn something or hurt something and everything else. So I got to constantly monitor them. It's up to the judiciary to grow the hell up. That's what it's for. And stop acting like we got to constantly watch you all the time. And forget that whole narrative. That's the whole thing. When you grow up, then we'll talk. It says the Articles of Confederation of 1781 was scheduled to be amended on August 7th, 1786 by a constitutional convention called by a grand committee. Now, why is a grand committee of the Grand Lodge calling for a constitutional convention? The following notes are provided to show the Articles of Confederation of 1781 were in fact attempting to be amended. The subject matter of the notes is not necessarily part of this international alien tort claim. However, the following notes have been added to this international alien tort claim to show the intent of amending the Articles of Confederation of 1781 and not to establish a completely different constitution. So you can go through this. It's quite long. You can just read the notes if you'd like. This is available right in the newspaper. Okay, and that's the end of the notes. It is well established that the Articles of Confederation of 1781 were never amended during the Constitutional Convention, Grand Convention. Instead, George Washington introduced his own private Republican oligarchy called the United States, which had nothing to do with the 13 states of the Union, by the way, at the time. This is 1781. This is not the Civil War, because everybody gets that confused because they really teach a lot of civics in school, right? In history. It's 100 years earlier. Okay? So the entity called the United States of America is referenced in the Treaty of Paris of 1783. All right, demonstrating that it existed 6 years before the Constitutional Convention. So someone had a plan. Then, and we're talking about this entity right here, that lowercase t. So they changed that little lowercase t, and nobody would really notice that because back then they just didn't notice things like that. Was placed into a district called the District of Columbia. And here's the definitive Treaty of Peace, 1783. And this is where the His Royal Highness over there, King of Great Britain and all that, Duke of Brunswick and Lunenburg, blah, 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 Arch-Treasurer and Prince Elector of the Holy Roman Empire. That would be the Catholic Church, and of the United States of America. So, that being said, a city was created called the City of Washington, D.C. in 1791, which became its own nation operating as a city-state, just like Vatican City. Okay, people think when they look at Italy, they don't really realize Italy has its own communist government. They just think the Vatican is Italy. They don't know any different. They think that's the government of Italy. Well, no, they have a prime minister and all that in Italy. It's a whole other government. Not a lot of people know the name of the president, and or that there's a parliament. They never hear about any of their elections. They don't hear anything about that government whatsoever. Every time they go over there, they talk about the Pope. And that's it. The city of Washington, D.C. became a part of a three-city-state empire, making private agreements with Vatican City and City of London, also known as the Crown. This is not talking about London. There's an actual little city called City of London, and it is spelled lowercase c, and it's known as the Crown, which has nothing to do with the Queen of England. The crown operates as a financial part of the empire. Vatican City operates as the church of the empire, and the city of Washington, D.C. operates as the military of the empire. A fourth party to this agreement is derived from the Manhattan Island to operate as a supplier to the three city state empire. And what we mean by supplier is most of them are international brokers. And what they do is the way that the world commerce works is if you want to buy oil from another country, you got to contact an international broker up there in New York. And those international brokers, and where do you find them? Bank of New York Mellon, will facilitate the deal. And that's how they make their money and their commission. They're the middlemen. Okay, and it's day-to-day operations and services, legal tender supply, military supply, because that's who runs the Federal Reserve. They print the money, military supply, and all forms of security for the employees. This is where you have Secret Service and all them. Manhattan Island also formed the stock market for trading in stocks and commodities. Its main central bank is known as the Bank of New York, doing business as the Bank of New York Mellon in the United States. And we all know who this came from. This was the guy that was involved in what they call the British American Union way back when, on last week's program. The Bank of New York Mellon boasts of $28 trillion in assets in 2017. Well, why don't you guys just go ahead and pay off your own debt? Well, we can't do that. No, that doesn't work. We need to extract more money. We're in hurt. We're always constantly injuring ourselves, and you really need to fix us, right? The United States is wholly owned and overseen by the Netherlands and Great Britain. Now, its original charter was the Charter of the Patroons, known as the Charter of Freedoms and Exemptions of 1629. This is where slavery came from, folks. In the last paragraph of that charter, it mentioned to supply blacks for slave labor. When it was named New Netherlands, keep this in mind, New Netherlands, okay? Keep that in mind, New Netherlands. There has not been any evidence that the charter has been revoked. However, in 1775, the outbreak of the American Revolution, feudal tenure were abolished, and thus patroons and manors evolved into simply large estates subject to divisions and leases, which is the same as feudal tenure, and the requirement of the addition of the addendum clause attached to each deed today. Any deed without an addendum clause will not be recorded at the county recorder's office and the Bank of New York Mellon. Okay, this is the Bank of New York Mellon corporate headquarters. Okay, the supplier is also in contract with the Tarsus Club, operated by Murray Chance. There's only one picture of him, and it's very blurry. He actually made a movie to announce his existence. A Dutchman that has aspirations controlling all 7 continents of the world under a world central government, according to their website. The Tarsus Club logo is proudly displayed as the bull on Wall Street. So that big gold bull that you see, that's dealing with the Tarsus Club.
Yeah, and I'd like to throw in here, it may have changed. I haven't looked in a couple weeks, but the last time I attempted to look into Tarsus Club and or Murray Chance, a lot of the info seemed to have been scrubbed from the internet. So if folks do a search on that, you're probably going to have to dig deeper than just your typical search.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the movie that they had. It was a movie about 2 guys that infiltrated, or they actually just crashed a Tarsus Club party, and that's all it was. It was just, I think it was a recruitment thing myself, but what the hell do I know, right? It says when George Washington operated a military takeover of the country, known as the United States of America, George Washington and his successors altered the chain of title, thereby abandoning the General Post Office of 1775 and the original Perpetual Union of 1781, as it is written in the Ledger of Ben Franklin. And when you look at this, you can go in there and read it. The last head of the General Post Office under the Confederacy. And then that's when they came in and brought another one. You'll see it, Samuel Osgood. And they broke chain of title when they did that. So there was no amending. In other words, if you would have kept the original General Post Office and kept the original General or Postmaster General, and not say no, we're gonna start a postal department and appoint a new postmaster general for the postal department, you just broke chain of title. Which
Yep. Same principle with the docks, right? I don't know if you covered it earlier. I had to step away, but same principle with the docks. The Constitution is a separate doc from Articles of Confederation. Completely separate doc. There's no tie-in whatsoever.
Separate government, separate everything.
So these folks come together and promote the idea that it was the Constitutional Convention was designed to amend the Articles of Confederation, and they just determined that, oh, okay, this is a better route. We'll do a constitution instead. That wasn't really what occurred. What occurred was a planned thing to abandon and push aside, so to speak, the Articles of Confederation for a new agreement.
Yeah, all done by people that were delegates at one time under the Confederacy of 1781, but were not delegates at the time.
As established in previous t-roh show.
That's right. So it's there. Okay. So, however, it was found almost 100 years later that on October 9th, 1874, that was after all this other crap had gone on, George Washington's successor signed a General Postal Union Treaty under the country name the United States of America. And they absolutely did. That's called usurpation, folks.
Right. The question, I'm sorry, go ahead. I can ask after the paragraph's been read.
Which formed the Universal Postal Union. It was called the General Post Office Union, or the General Postal Union. The aforementioned treaty was signed by, a 2-year law student for the United States of America. Yes, we have proof of all this. Joseph H. Beekfan. This guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. A 2-year law student working for the United States of America under the authority of the President of the United States and the British Empire, which will be proven later in this international alien tort claim. Okay, problem there, folks, problem. Another example of the name of the country is the United States of America. South Carolina succeeded in the original Union under the United States of America on the 17th day of September, 1860. This was done 14 years after. Thereby not recognizing the United States of America as the name of the country. However, believing that the Constitution of the United States was somehow ratified by the United States and Congress assembled, when the government never properly convened to adopt the said Constitution or the Constitution of the United States of America, those constitutions were privately owned companies and were never intended to become any form of a national government. Secret societies can't pass national governments, folks. It doesn't work. Okay, and then there's the ordinance, and it shows what they did, and here it is right here. And this is word for word. We didn't alter anything.
Right. So, just quickly to summarize here, if I understand it, the Postal Union episode was United States representative sent by the president, signed for the United States of America. Correct?
Right, which 100 years later, which they didn't have the authority to do that. They just did it because nobody was there to object, and they knew nobody knew about it.
Exactly. So I was just going to say, so where's the doc that gives them the authority to sign for the United States of America?
Exactly. And where do they have the authority to bring in the UPU into the states of the Union? They don't. So therefore, all their federal zones are illegal and trespass. It's a trespass overlay. So, further, the country is improperly identified as the United States. Improper change of international character happened when the classification of a war was changed to civil war and civil rebellion. It was just an actual war. That's all it was. The invaders redefined the word state after the war of the United States and the United States of America against the states of the Union. That was all the states that you're seeing. Tennessee, Ohio, all those states, and the United States of America. The war started in 1860 when South Carolina and the rest of the southern states sided with the United States. So South Carolina actually committed treason at the time when they sided with Manhattan Island against the states of the Union, against their own brothers. and the United States of America, as seen in the aforementioned ordinance, South Carolina. Here's the word state, and this is when they said to be construed to include the territories and the District of Columbia. So they wanted to make a word state there. Or they wanted to include the District of Columbia as a state. Within the United States, keep in mind, folks, the United States does not comprise of the 48 states of the Union. It is only comprised of Guam, Puerto Rico, and everything, all their states. That's it. We keep trying to tell people. All right, the following results came from the forcing of a political will on the people and their successors and heirs from one family that came into being, known as George Washington, and his heirs, successors, and sons. Why? Because they have blind allegiance. That's why. Most dangerous act that a human being can commit. The United States and the United States of America has never settled its nationality and citizenship rules, requirements, and definitions in violation of Article 15. They've never done it. We checked for months, could not find where they had actually done it because none of it makes any sense.
And why wouldn't they do it?
Exactly. They're plagued with, we only want certain people. Okay, that's what they're plagued with. They only want certain people, and they don't want everybody in the club. So the Constitution of the United States or the United States of America does not provide a civilian president of the United States of America, and therefore the states of the Union, the United States of America, remain under military occupation by the U.S. military and other various forms perpetually. The Constitution of the United States and the United States are illegal documents in violation of the law of nations. They've always been illegal. There's Law of Nations, and you can go look it up. It's book 4 if you want to read it. In the preamble of the Constitution of the United States and the United States of America, the people of the United States are not defined, and therefore it is impossible to know if the people of the United States have the authority to ordain and establish a constitution for the United States of America. Therefore, the documents are vague and null and void for vagueness. The aforementioned constitutions claim to operate as a federal government of the states of the Union, when in reality they are foreign to the states of the Union, operating as what? Traffickers of persons. How can a United States be foreign to the states of the Union and operate as its federal government?
And they know that they're foreign.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the case law that we read a page or so ago.
That's right. That those 14-year-olds are constantly trying to violate.
Mm-hmm. So right. if they know because of their case law and they continually do this, then
they have an intent.
Exactly. And where are the human rights, where are the human rights expressed, the respect for the human rights, if they're intentionally continuing with this? You see, folks, they're scratching at the very surface here for show with the recent executive order, a little mild cleanup, probably for their administration's benefit more than anything else. Certainly not for your benefit.
No, because you can call the Attorney General of a state anytime you want, and he'll write a private letter for you.
He'll write a letter for you, yeah. So this is what we're trying to communicate. This is a deeper level of understanding what's occurring. The United States is basically built upon violations of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights,
Law of Nations.
Yeah, it without changes that would probably jeopardize its existence, it can't come into compliance with those international documents.
And at the same time, it gave itself power to determine violations of law of nations.
Yeah.
So, it's Fox Garden Hen House there.
Mm-hmm.
The people within the states of the Union suffer a perpetual condition of statelessness because the people are recognized as residents of a federal state and subject to federal laws and policies of a foreign empire. After their person is trafficked, listen carefully, their person is trafficked out of the states of the Union. So don't give up your birth certificate. Hello, that's the only evidence you have that you were born in the states of the Union, from which is their origin of birth. So all these gurus say, well, you have to surrender the person through the birth certificate. Stop that, please. The people within the states of the Union are forced to endure the foreign title of U.S. citizen and residents of an offshore state, thereby subjected to a foreign monarch as slaves, using these same slaves as surety for its debt and religious mission. So they traffic your person out of the states of the Union. Oh, wait, I think we go through this. I think we go through this later. Yeah, we do. Actually, we do. All right, I'll leave that till then. Here's the law of nations and the section that's being violated right here. All right, the states of the Union are forced to use the British and United States legal tender and not a national money, thereby withholding any form of national identity and international character that can be recognized by other countries. The promise of national money has been broken, thereby the forcing of the people of the states of the Union to operate in a black market condition. And further, the unholy foreign union have grown so large and powerful with the reliance of slave labor. Every one of you did this because every one of you helped. You were brought into it, and you didn't know any different. You were lied to, and you built this thing. Any form of protest is ignored, and the protester is trafficked into one of the private detention centers under indefinite detention. Now you understand why they came out with indefinite detention. It wasn't to keep you safe. It was to keep them safe.
Right.
The Patriot Act does not protect you, it protects them.
It allows them to go after what they label as patriots.
And people that blow the whistle on them. That's what it's for. The unholy union forced the people of the states of the Union to ask permission to do what? You have to ask permission to marry, that's a license, form a family, procreate, use the public highways, rent company housing, take company pharmaceuticals under inflated conditions, drink poison water, breathe poison air, suffer birth defects caused by company forced vaccinations. Now you know why they have indefinite detention, is to hide all this. Shop from company stores, pay company taxes, detained in privately owned detention centers owned by the judges, suffer unnatural weather modification, constant surveillance and privacy violations. That's why you go through you have to be x-rayed. And you can see everybody naked. So that's the same exact thing you do to cows and animals. Warrantless arrest, due process violations, forced public education, read a distortion of history of the country, thereby stealing the national identity of a human being in violation of Article 4, that's the slavery clause, and 15, that's the nationality clause of the UDHR. Here's the amendment, folks. This gets even better. We're going to give you the good news called the truth. Against the United States et al., we added in the union by and between the British Empire and the United States. So we added in the British Empire and the British Israel World Union of World Government. We're going to show you how unnecessary the last 100 years have been. It'll make you puke. Upon further review of this international alien tort claim by the Committee for the Government of the United States of America, the committee has found new evidence in addition thereto, this international alien tort claim, which expands to other parties in accordance with the records of the United States. Now, trafficking persons. New evidence. Steps towards British Union, a world state, international strife. In everything that's being claimed here is in that evidence file. So you just download the zip file, it's all there. We got the full text. The House of Representatives under the Constitution of the United States represents the people in congressional districts. We have a definition of a district. It's in the evidence file. Congressional districts are not the states of the Union from where they were born. That's an overlay survey. It's like a blanket that goes over the top of a bed. You have a bed and you have a blanket that goes over, that's called overlay survey. Each election since its inception by the Masonic Order has been trafficking persons out of the states of the Union into congressional districts of which are not a part of any of the states of the Union. Why? Because the Grand Masters have hijacked the states of the Union. Go back to the first part of this program, you'll see the letter. Thorkelson of Montana further claims that the United States is a republic, when in fact the United States is also defined as being a union of 50 states, combined within the perpetual union known as these United States. These meaning plural. And we talk about that. It is obvious that the Honorable J. Thorkelson of Montana was speaking of a different United States within these records. The United States Thorkelson was speaking of as a Republican oligarchy. Under the Roman Curia, guided by the Vatican through the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, which we've covered all this, which is a political fascist organization doing business as a federal corporation, not ecclesiastical or other type. The union between the British and the United States has nothing to do with religion, it's ecclesia. It has everything to do with politics. It's just a political organization. That's it. And here's the federal corporation, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's seen that. And this is another quote. I don't know if you want to read that quote, but we could. This statement is clear that the organizations which Mr. Carnegie endowed have spent millions in order to bring this about. This thing has been made possible by scholarships, exchange professors, subsidies of churches, subsidies of educational institutions, all of them working for the purpose of eliminating Americanism, as was taught once in our schools, and gradually exchange this for the English version of our history. These organizations were organized to bring about the British Union, a union in which the United States would again become part of the British Empire. However, this has been upset to some extent by the attempt of the internationalists to establish their own government as an international world union. And there is therefore a conflict between the two, for England wants a British Union with America as a colony, and the international money changers want a Jewish-controlled union in order to establish their own world government.
That's a good quote also, because it points out the fact that there's multiple entities vying for control of United States, American continent, American society, populace. Why is that?
Why don't they just go freaking home, man?
Yeah, well, because they're easy pickings, right? They're stateless. So it's like whoever can establish it gets it. You know?
Yeah.
It's basically a race of the exploiters.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
In order for the plan to become a reality, it would mean that the international genocide of original 13 states of the Union under the Constitution of the United States and the rest of the republics that came after the original 13 would follow, and the aforesaid genocide of the international character and international person of these United States within the United States of America. See, any so-called biblical plan does not include genocide and trafficking in persons and all that. If it was a real plan, the Most High doesn't do that. He doesn't violate these things. So whatever they did, this is their own stupidity is basically what it is. The plan was started back in 1787 when the states under the established and recognized national government under the Articles of Confederation were arbitrarily rendered no longer independent by the Masonic Order. It signed an illegal document known as the Constitution of the United States. When Cornwallis surrendered to Washington, he surrendered the battle, not the war. Read Article of Capitulation signed by Cornwallis at Yorktown. Jonathan Williams recorded in his book, Legions of Satan, 1781, that Cornwallis revealed to Washington during his surrender that a holy war will now begin in America. And when it is ended, America will supposedly be the citadel of freedom. Aren't y'all always going over to Iraq and Afghanistan fighting for freedom? But her millions will unknowingly be loyal subjects to the crown. That's the city of London. In less than 200 years, a whole nation will be working for divine world government. That government that they believe to be divine will be the British Empire. We're not talking about England. This is the British Empire, created by the crown.
That's a stunning quote.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's way up there.
Because the report that came up was saying the same exact thing and has actually proven it. The report that's in the evidence file. That it was almost 200 years later. It's slowly happening. There is hereby imposed a transfer of property by a citizen or resident of the United States. This was a imposition of tax statute that proves that you're paying a foreign tax, and it goes on further in here. And here's the effective date and all that. And we'll get into this in a minute. It says the 12 most powerful nations on earth are the 12 tribes of Israel, of which the prophetess Bandler will identify only England, Ephraim, France, Reuben, the United States, Manasseh. It is clear that if these claims are true, Manasseh should not be paying taxes to Ephraim, whereas they are two separate tribes. One is not beholding to the other. Reuben does not pay taxes to Ephraim. So therefore, the United States has been stealing taxes, labor, and a host of other property from the states of the Union for over 200 years on behalf of England and the Netherlands.
Ouch.
Yep. U.S. military claims, and it is an all-volunteer military, when in fact it gains recruits through monetary manipulation, meaning the economy is willfully oppressed to force the younger men and women into the military with promises of a college education and financial stability. The recruits, persons, have already been trafficked offshore in order to avoid the kidnapping and man-stealing charge, is not imparted to the new recruits. The new recruits are told they are fighting for their own country to maintain its freedom and independence. This
Ouch.
is what, yeah. If Great Britain were to be threatened with an external foe, she could count upon every dollar, every man, and every drop of blood in America. Ephraim was without any rights to sacrifice Manasseh to fight Ephraim's battles, nor assist Ephraim with its mission to establish a world government. This is called man-stealing and kidnapping under the law of nations. And this is where it talks about the man-stealing. All right, for those that study Title 26, you will recognize IMF, which means individual master file. Here is the explanation that it is payable to the UK. Okay, and this goes along with Title 26. Back up here, okay? And it's an explanation of the whole thing. I'm not going to go through it, it's boring. All right, when England decided to trespass upon the United States of America and its national government through the Masonic Order, guided by the Crown, Vatican, and the Netherlands, the trespass occurred when it was found that the Treaty of Paris of 1783 was not with this entity here, the United States of America, the country, nor has there been any treaty by and between England and the United States of America, which is a rightful representative of the states of the Union. England treated with itself for the last 200 years. They're the ones that created the lowercase t on the United States of America. They're the ones that created the United States. The government of the United States of America is not concerned with the aspirations of Great Britain and Israel. Here's why. New Jerusalem is not the present-day Jerusalem, so there's no need to establish Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Okay? Now, let's go to common sense. Netherlands, back under the Charter of the Patroons, the exemptions, okay, came up with New Netherlands. Now, New Netherlands was not the Netherlands, so it was obviously in a different place. That's why they called it New. Just like Jersey, there's a Jersey and then there's a New Jersey, but New Jersey is not in the same place that Jersey is. And there's a New York, but it's not in the same geographical location as York. So
a lot of examples of that.
Why would somebody believe in their right mind, like the Crown and the British Empire, believe in their heads that Jerusalem is in fact New Jerusalem? Seriously? Israel was superseded by the reign of the heavens. So there's no need to take the territory from the Palestinians and no need for a 6-day war. And there's no need for you people to fight over Jerusalem and Israel. It was superseded. by the reign of the heavens. The country was changed. Okay, and what they're trying to say is if the world government was supposed to be under the throne of King David, one would think that England would have been given divine knowledge to inform them of the real Jerusalem and the divine world government rediscovered in 2012. Okay, and we have proof of that in the evidence file. I do want to cover one thing. Where is New Jerusalem? It's right here. That's New Jerusalem. It's north, the northern part of the reign of the heavens. This is the reign of the heavens here. I'll pull this out a little bit so people can see. Red Sea, the whole thing, it's right here. Because it's right at the foot of Mount Hermon. If you go back to t-roh show broadcast 18, 2.5 hours explaining this. This is how they screwed it up. So not down here, up here. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring Jerusalem under the throne of King David, so everybody's subjected to it. That's what's happening. Further, if the Netherlands Hague would have received this divine knowledge, common sense tells everyone that this throne, okay, everyone tells that his throne would have been blessed by the correct entities, and it would have also known the place of the new true New Jerusalem, and would further know that Israel was superseded by the reign of the heavens as noticed in 2012. We sent a notice of this to the Hague. And what we did was we broke off our persons under a dual nationality to give it a present day population, so that the Netherlands and the Hague would have no excuse to brush it off. What's supposed to happen, folks, is this. Let's go in. Let's go by what they've done, and then we'll tell you what was supposed to happen. In retrospect, England, the Netherlands, the Vatican, the Crown, and many others have conspired to track all the persons within the original states of the Union, within the United States of America, offshore, and continually sacrifice their bodies in foreign wars for no reason or purpose, place their persons under perpetual debt bondage, thereby using resources to build and establish something that has already been established. It was already established here. If they just go read the book. Change their view of the world from birth by manipulating their respect for law, thereby disguising a foreign corrupted spiritual mission as lawful orders for no reason whatsoever. They do that through their lawyers, American Bar Association, Antifa, SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center. It's all done through all this. What was it called? The Lawyers Guild. They do it through them too. Kidnap their children and sell them on the adoption market, which is getting really big now, by the way, for some reason. We're getting reports like this all the time. Constant reports of people their CPS coming in and taking people's children. They're selling them on the adoption market under the excuse of disbanding the family unit under globalism, when the reign of the heavens never gave any such order. I will explain why that is. Steal their homes and make them homeless to fund foreign wars under a plan that was never written anywhere in any historical book. They made it up. So, by the way, they were taking Yahweh's name in vain and brought it to naught. That's the biblical crime that was committed. Has been committed and still being committed today. England, Israel, the Netherlands, the Vatican, the Crown, and others misinterpreted revelations, thereby causing delusions of grandeur and serious biblical violations. They thought that when Israel was established in the 50s, they thought the next 10 years that there was going to be an Armageddon. How wrong was that? England used a device called the American Bankers Association to establish its own routing numbers by and between its member banks. These routing numbers are privately owned, and ABA is using federal rules of civil procedure. This right here, this rule, Rule 17B3A, which we've tried to use, by the way, and they don't honor it. Guess why? Because we're not British. To protect its monopoly on the private currency. That's what they're doing. The government of the United States of America published the following notice, and we did publish that. Go read that if you'd like. Deals with having to accept legal tender. The international public notice has been ignored by the ABA and still remains in violation of its own public policy. The funding mechanism is a scheme used through the Social Security Ponzi scheme, thereby trafficking persons treaty violations. The scheme traffics the person to one of the states of the United States, outside the states of the Union, in violation of the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, supplementing the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. That's the treaty that they're violating. Okay, and here's, we never accept the birth certificate as ID. Why? Because it shows that you were born in the States of the Union. That's why. And here's another one. A birth record, not sufficient evidence to establish identity for these purposes. This is the Code of Federal Regulations 422. It's in the evidence file. The ABA is in violation of Article 15 and Article 9 when it uses its currency within the States of the Union of the United States of America in various forms or lures the people from the States of the Union, thereby promising some form of benefit, and claims it is all done by private contract under Rule 17B3A as a private membership association. Claims protection under its own charter, which is, I believe, Article 1, Article 5, and Article 14 due process. Y'all know them as amendments. Every transaction completed through its automatic clearinghouse counts as one violation of each article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights when the ABA ignores its public policy, thereby forcing human trafficking and slavery. The ABA will not accept the continental dollar, which is the actual national currency of the country, established way back when, in 1776 and 1781. ABA routing number, aka routing numbers, was developed by the American Bankers Association in 1910. That was to prove responsibility of who did it. It serves to identify the specific financial institution responsible for the payment of the negotiable instrument. Martial law and perpetual state of emergency has been enforced under 1939 Trading with the Enemy Act, thereby making the citizens of one of the states of the Union and enemies of the states of the Union when their person is returned to the states of the Union as a U.S. citizen and foreign to the states of the Union. So they traffic your person offshore, give you an offshore title as U.S. citizen, return you back to the states of the Union, so you don't know any difference, but you're listed as a U.S. citizen and you're actually foreign to the state of which you reside. Therefore, how can you vote? Now you understand why they put in electoral college?
Bingo.
This was all done way back when. Why would they put electoral college? Will they not get rid of the electoral college? That's why. This can be found under the Trading with the Enemy Act, 1917. It starts there, and there's the notes, and it goes through all the notes. You can read them of what it is, what's going on, how it happened, the whole thing. This is the last. The majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule. For almost 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have, in varying degrees, been abridged by laws brought and forced by states of a national emergency. Hello. Here's further evidence of international trespass. This right here did not get on their dollar bill until 1934 by Roosevelt, because he saw what? He saw the British symbols in it. How do you prove that any of this is true? Go get a $1 bill and look at the back of it. It's right there. The union with the British was never put on the ballot for a vote of the people of the states of the Union, and further Ephraim's attempt to subject another tribe of the reign of the heavens. There is no evidence of anyone volunteering anything towards this cause whatsoever. Here's the government of the United States of America has discovered thousands of various private membership associations, private companies, and many groups working towards a British Israel world government, thereby trafficking billions of persons under its global plan. Over 300 million persons from the states of the Union and the United States of America have been trafficked to offshore private trusts for the purpose of taxation. The Social Security Administration within the United States boasts trafficking of 450 million persons on their website. Go take a look. It's right there. They've issued 450 million Social Security numbers. This is what's supposed to happen, folks. It's been well established and well proved since 2012 that the Northeast Israel is, in fact, the reign of the heavens. It's right in the scriptures. We've proven it over and over again. There's also a 5-minute video that proves within scripture what it is, who established it, everything from start to finish. Broadcast 18 proves that this is the New Jerusalem right here. Go listen to it. What was supposed to happen is the New Jerusalem was supposed to be built. It's sitting there desolate right now. It was supposed to be rebuilt. Everybody in the world, this is what they call the financial center of the world. Everyone was supposed to have dual nationality, dual citizenship. They could be a citizen of their country and the national, or whatever, however they wanted to do it. That's why we did what we did with the anointed ruler of the reign of the heavens. We went under dual nationality. The reason for that was right here, and the reign of the heavens was attached to the original Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 and all that. It went all the way back to Adam and Eve. The man who established it was the heir to Adam and Eve, as prophesied. So that, in fact, did happen. What we tried to do back in 2012 or 13 was set up we had a man over here working with us who was an international. He built cities, is what he did, and he was well established. And he was in charge of about 375 million people in Africa. And we were going to establish a general post office somewhere within the reign of the heavens, so that people, it was just a symbolism. We didn't want the territory. We didn't care about that. What we wanted was a general post office there, so people would have an address in the reign of the heavens, and they could prove their dual nationality. Now, since this is the financial epicenter of the world, this is the connection to your global accounts, where you can go and borrow credit essentially from the Most High, from heaven. Okay, that's what it's all about. And bring that over to your country where you have a nationality there, and fund your country freely. Each individual man and woman could do this. So they could help their country with finances, not sit there and try to prove everything in the world and control everything so that one guy is able to make decisions for everybody else. That's not how this works. All people were created equal. So you're supposed to have a dual nationality here, and we have it over here as American national within the United States of America. The reign of the heavens was to be connected to that and to every other country in the world as a dual. It's not to where the reign of the heavens wanted control over you and subject you and everything else like these morons are doing in the British Empire. That's not what it's about. Okay? So that way everyone in the world would be able to give through their credit to their country and build their country up. The reign of the heavens builds countries. It doesn't subject countries. It builds them in accordance with the law of nations, in accordance with biblical law. That's its purpose. This is what was set up, and this is what was intended. But these morons over in freaking City of London thought something different. They thought they were special and better than you. And when they did that, they committed more crimes than can be counted. That's what we're trying to talk about here. So there have been people that have got their RAIN national status and all that. We sent that to the Netherlands. They tried to quash it, get rid of it, because they have a bunch of investors in Israel right now that are building hotels and crap. How do I know that? I talked to the guy that's building them. And I call it 007. It's called the 700 Club. He's invested in it personally. That's what the 700 Club is invested in. So what they're doing is they're trying to set up all this tourism right around Jerusalem so that they could have what they call a financial epicenter where everybody would go there for pilgrimages and everything else. They're in the wrong place. They're writing checks that they can't cover. If it was the right place, there would be no need to sacrifice people. You won't sacrifice yourself, by the way, little cowards. They'll sacrifice everybody else to fulfill revelations. They've been trying to do it for years. That's what all this confusion's about. Every president has done the same thing, trying to get Jerusalem recognized and all that. That means they're all a part of it, folks. The most dangerous thing in the world and the most dangerous thing an act a human being can commit is blind allegiance. Stop being so gullible. America first? No. Jerusalem capital. British Empire. Bring America under as a colony again. Fight for freedom in Iraq? No. Destroy Iraq to protect Israel for the British Empire. Take over government in Iran, last 4 days or 5 days of to overthrow that government to protect what? Jerusalem for the British Empire. So everybody would be subjected to King David rather than have access to their own global account and have freedom their whole lives and be able to be some of the richest nations on earth. So let's not go the positive direction. Let's go to where death, destruction, and all that. We've been trying to tell these people for 5 years that this is what's supposed to be done. All the math works out. 33rd parallel, the whole thing. All the math works out on the location and everything else. And what do these guys do? They keep pushing. Let's topple governments. Let's do this. Let's do that. Blah, blah, blah. For what reason? You're fighting for something that's already been established and done. All you got to do is use a little bit of cement and rebuild the city. Complete and total waste of time. You have wasted time, resources, committed crimes in the aftermath of all this, over and over and over. And this city is no bigger than this right here. And this is the mouth of the river that supplies water. It's right here. It's already been knacked. We've said this over and over again. Not one builder has contacted us, international builder that could build this. In the United States of America, you could use the continental dollar. In France, you can use the franc. In Germany, you can use the mark. In England, you can use the crown or the what the hell, or whatever the damn money is. I can't remember what it is.
I think it's the pound.
Pound, thank you. Okay? All of you can use your own money. You don't have to get rid of your sovereignty, your identity, and everything else. You can become dual nationals, and therefore you're attached to the financial epicenter of the world, by the way, because the water keeps flowing. Hello, water keeps flowing here. And have prosperity for the whole entire world through the people of each country. But you guys thought you were special. You thought you knew something. Not cool, man. It is not cool what's going on here. And if you would get your soldiers the hell out of the way and your freaking arrogant grand masters out of the way, we can prove it. But what are you doing? You're trying to stop it. Because you think you know what the scriptures tells you. And by the way, what stopped this was the CIA got a hold of the man we were talking to in California and lied about me personally, you bunch of damn liars, and convinced him that I was some kind of, I have no idea what it was, but he turned real quick. And I can't think of one thing that I've ever done in this world that would cause that kind of reaction unless it was some kind of lie by the Central Intelligence Agency. And there were all kinds of lies going on during that time. And it was being spread by the Central Intelligence Agency in service to the British Empire. So-called supposedly on the side of the United States? No, you're serving the British Empire, trying to turn this country into a plantation, into a colony. That's what you're doing. That's your mission. And I didn't appreciate the crap that they pulled to stop this. So what? Y'all wouldn't look like a couple of idiots? Well, you look like idiots now. Want to put anything else out there?
No.
All right.
You ended strong.
Thank you for listening to the 54th broadcast of the t-roh Show. I hope that the information in this video gets to the right people and people that do not have their heads in their sphincters. That'll be great. Thank you very much. We will talk to you next week.
Enjoy the week.